Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I, 33, have a younger brother Alex, 27M, who had a difficult birth and spent 2 weeks in the NICU. Because of this, my parents have always treated him like a precious gem, rarely saying no to him, even if it meant Olivia, 30F, my sister and I got the short end of the stick. Alex thrives on attention and has a knack for stealing the spotlight at family events, whether it's mine, Olivia's, or our cousins. This behavior has strained our relationship with Alex and our parents. To make matters worse, Alex met and fell head over heels for Emma, 23F, who announced her pregnancy at Olivia's gender reveal party last year. When I proposed to my now wife Sarah, 29F, in early 2023, I wanted to keep it simple with just the two of us. But Sarah dreamed of having her family there, so I reluctantly invited mine. During the engagement party, my best friend Mike, 33M, noticed a jewelry store receipt fall from Alex's pocket. Mike confronted him, which led to a heated argument. Mike filled me in later, and I immediately knew what was up. I told Alex, "You're out as a groomsman. I know you're planning to propose at my wedding." Alex ran to our parents, crying foul. They called me, and I could hear the disappointment in my mom's voice. "Dylan, how could you accuse your brother like that? He hasn't admitted to anything," I snapped back. "Are you kidding me? Have you forgotten all the times he's pulled stunts like this?" They couldn't argue with that. They got Alex to promise he wouldn't try anything at the wedding. It wasn't enough to change my mind about the groomsman thing, but I warned him. If you pull any tricks as a guest, you'll regret it. Fast forward to the wedding day in June 2023. Everything was going smoothly until Sarah's father-daughter dance. That's when Alex decided to make his move. He walked over to Emma, got down on one knee, and proposed in the most attention-grabbing way possible. That's when my revenge plan kicked into gear. Mike and I had hired an actress to play Alex's secret girlfriend. She cornered Alex and Emma, claiming she was pregnant with his baby. Alex's face turned pale. "What? I've never seen you before in my life." The actress pulled out her phone. "Oh really? Then why do I have your number?" When she called, Alex's phone lit up with a contact name that read Babe3. I had messed with his phone earlier to set this up. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She yanked the ring off her finger, threw it at Alex, and stormed out. When Alex saw the smirk on my face, realization dawned on him. I ignored every call and text from him and our parents until after the honeymoon. Emma has since kicked Alex out and isn't letting him see their kid. Alex is furious, demanding that I clear his name. I sent him a text saying, "No idea what you're talking about, bro." Then I sent a screenshot of our wedding bill with a vague message about him owing half the costs. Sarah knew about my plan the whole time and gave me the go-ahead after Alex ruined her dance with her dad. I felt pretty good about it, but now even Olivia thinks I went overboard. The next one is an entitled people's story. I never thought I'd be telling a story like this, but here goes. I'm a 45-year-old guy just trying to live a quiet life. I work from home as a software developer, and I generally keep to myself. Little did I know that my peaceful existence was about to be shattered by the most insane neighbor I've ever had the misfortune of meeting. It all started on a Tuesday afternoon. I decided to take a break from coding and walk to the local coffee shop for a change of scenery. As I was leaving my apartment building, I noticed a woman I'd never seen before struggling with some grocery bags. She looked to be in her late 30s with bleach blonde hair and way too much makeup. I didn't think much of it and kept walking. Suddenly I heard a shrill voice behind me. "Hey, you! Don't you have any manners?" I turned around, confused. The woman was glaring at me like I'd just kicked her puppy. "Excuse me?" I said, not sure what she was talking about. "You saw me struggling with these bags, and you didn't even offer to help. What kind of man are you?" she screeched. I was taken aback. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize you needed help. I was just..." She cut me off. "Save your excuses. You're just like all the other men in this building. Selfish and useless." I decided it wasn't worth arguing with her. "Look, I apologize if I offended you. Have a nice day." I turned to leave. "Don't you walk away from me," she yelled. But I kept going, shaking my head. I figured that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. Over the next few weeks, I kept running into this woman, let's call her Karen, in the building. Every time she saw me, she'd mutter under her breath or give me the stink eye. I tried to be polite and say hello, but she'd just huff and turn away. One day, as I was checking my mail, Karen cornered me in the lobby. "Listen here, you jerk," she said, jabbing her finger at my chest. "I've been watching you. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you?" I was stunned. "Ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. I've done nothing to you." "Oh, please." she sneered. "I see you ignoring everyone, never socializing. You probably think we're all beneath you." I tried to explain that I was just a private person, but she wasn't having it. "I'm going to teach you a lesson about respect," she threatened before storming off. I should have taken her more seriously. A few days later, I was coming home from the grocery store when I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head. Everything went black. When I came to, I was in a dark room, tied to a chair. My head was throbbing, and I could taste blood in my mouth. As my eyes adjusted to the dim light, I saw Karen standing in front of me, a crazed look in her eyes. "Welcome to your new home," she said with a twisted smile. "You're going to learn how to be a proper neighbor, even if it kills you." I couldn't believe what was happening. This had to be a nightmare. "Karen, please," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "This is insane. Let me go and we can forget this ever happened." She laughed, a high-pitched cackle that sent chills down my spine. "Oh no, sweetie, we're just getting started." For the next 3 days, Karen kept me captive in what I realized was her basement. She'd come down periodically to rant about how I needed to be more social, how I was a disgrace to the building, and how she was going to fix me. She'd force me to recite rules of etiquette and threaten me with a taser if I got them wrong. I tried reasoning with her, pleading, even pretending to agree with her twisted logic. Nothing worked. She was completely unhinged. On the 4th day, I heard a commotion upstairs. There were voices and then the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs. My heart raced, hoping it was rescue. The door burst open and 2 police officers rushed in, guns drawn. Karen screamed and tried to run, but they quickly subdued her. As one officer untied me, he explained that my boss had called in a missing person report when I didn't show up for an important video call. They'd done a sweep of the building and heard noises coming from Karen's apartment. The next few weeks were a blur of police statements, medical exams, and therapy sessions. I learned that Karen had a history of mental illness and had stopped taking her medication months ago. She'd become fixated on the idea that she needed to improve the neighbors in our building. The legal process was long and complicated. Karen was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and assault. Her lawyer tried to argue for an insanity defense, but the prosecution had a strong case. They presented evidence of Karen's meticulous planning, including a journal where she detailed her lessons for me and plans for reforming other neighbors. During the trial, I had to testify about my ordeal. It was hard reliving those terrifying days, but I knew it was necessary to make sure Karen couldn't hurt anyone else. The jury found Karen guilty on all counts. The judge, citing the severity of the crime and Karen's lack of remorse, sentenced her to 25 years in prison with mandatory psychiatric treatment. As for me, I'm still dealing with the aftermath of what happened. I've moved to a new apartment in a different part of town, and I'm slowly learning to trust people again. My therapist says it'll take time, but I'm making progress. This whole experience has taught me a lot. While I still value my privacy, I've made an effort to be more engaged with my new neighbors. Not because I'm afraid of another Karen, but because I realize now how important it is to have a support system. To anyone reading this, remember that you never really know what's going on in someone else's head. Be kind, be aware, but also trust your instincts. If something feels off, it probably is. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like mine, don't lose hope. Help can come from unexpected places. As for Karen, I hope she gets the help she needs in prison, but I also hope she stays far, far away from me and any other unsuspecting neighbors for a very long time. The next one is a petty revenge story. Background. My parents live in the middle of our town, but their house is surrounded by about an acre of forest wood. This part of the property has never been developed or anything. It's always been wild, and my parents like it that way. This is relevant. Their house is also at the top of a hill, and their property extends down the hill to where it flattens out. There's a street down the hill, and a few of the houses there have backyards that face my parents' property. The issue has been one set of neighbors down the hill who have been a thorn to my parents for a few years now. Their favorite move has been to call bylaw on my family. They don't talk to my parents first about the issues. They go straight to our city's bylaw. Once because the previous owners of their house had illegally dumped a boat on my parents' property, and my parents had to pay to remove it. And another time because there was a tree that had to be removed. I can't remember the exact reasons it had to be taken down, which cost my parents $5,000 to do so. Obviously, this has not endeared these people to my parents. Story. Recently, my parents found out that the neighbors had whippersnipped a swath of my parents' property. For reference, the neighbors have a fence around their property, so it's not like they accidentally went a little too far in the maintenance of their own property. This became the straw that broke the camel's back. Or rather, my parents' tolerance for their crap. After a quick check with bylaw, because they knew that the neighbors would be on the phone to them immediately, my parents bought a no trespassing sign, one that is the exact maximum size allowed by our city. The bright red monstrosity is 2 by 3 feet. My mother and brother went down the hill and installed it fully on my parents' property, facing the neighbor's backyard. So every time they are in their backyard or even look out the back, it's right there, in all its petty glory. Did I mention you can also see it from the road? I'm sure not only all of their neighbors and visitors can see it, but anyone walking or driving past can see it. My sister may have changed her daily dog walk path to go past it, so she can laugh. We're all petty in my family. Within 24 hours of it going up, my parents received a letter from the neighbors, one that included a whole pile of excuses and deflection. The tree they forced to remove had made weeds grow, so they had to weed whack my parents' property. There was a gate in their fence, so they thought they were allowed to go on the property. They wish my parents had talked to them first about the issue, which made my mom angry laugh. It also included several things they'd done on the property that my parents hadn't known about, which just annoyed my parents further. And was also stupid of them, because they just admitted to destroying property and trespassing. On a letter they signed and dated, the letter asked that my parents take the sign down. While my father, who can be a softie, was considering it, my mother said no, and she'll be the one dealing with them. She has no intention of taking the sign down, and legally, she doesn't have to. So now we're just waiting for the neighbors to show up to talk, which we know they will as they mentioned it in their letter. And now they get to face my mother, who has what we call Dragon Lady mode, where she goes quiet, calm, and her anger is as cold as ice. The last time she was this annoyed with someone, it ended with that person being forced to resign from our local school board because of her. I hope I'm there when the neighbors find out that my mother is a petty, clever, vindictive dragon. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I-34M had always been doing multimedia for my church for years and years, so displaying lyrics and creating PowerPoint slides are second nature to me. I was scheduled to take care of the multimedia this morning, so as usual, I came and created what's needed. I set up all of the lyrics, Bible verses, and the slides that was sent from the speaker before I went to the restroom. When I'm back, I saw the guy who usually plays the bass, Nate, but he wasn't on schedule today. He was having a conversation with another person behind the multimedia station. I went back to my station and started pre-displaying everything on the screen to make sure that I can read everything, so that's what I did before I noticed that Nate is looking at my station. 5 minutes before we start, Nate suddenly asked what I prepared. I showed him everything, the lyrics, the Bible verses, the slides, just to satisfy his curiosity. Side note, I don't really like Nate for several reasons. He believes in a lot of conspiracies people shared on social media, and when someone questioned him, he argued non-stop. Most of us just try to avoid starting a conversation with him entirely, including me. Also, whenever he's scheduled to play bass, he tuned his amp's volume quite high, higher than the other musical instruments that I can feel the vibration every time he plucks his bass, and the multimedia station is at the very back of the room. He's just super obnoxious. Apparently his obnoxiousness is at a high rate today because as soon as he saw the slides I prepared, he said that the font size is too small. He didn't say it might be too small, no, he said it's too small. I told him that it's fine, it's the regular font size we all use week after week, but he wouldn't drop it. By this time, the service started, but for some reason he didn't go to find an empty seat in the audience. Rather, he sat on a stool behind my station while repeatedly telling me that the font is too small. By this point, I was listening to his font mantra behind me while displaying the lyrics for the singers. After a couple minutes, I asked him if he's planning to sit with the audience, and I kid you not, this is his response. "OP, your font is too small, you need to increase it." I can't believe it. He's so fixated on my slide's font size that he refused to leave me alone until I fulfill his wishes. By this point, even the pastor's wife asked him to please have a seat in the audience, in which he told her that it's better for him to sit there because if he sat in the audience, he wouldn't be able to see anything. I had enough. Malicious compliance initiated. While still controlling the displayed lyrics, I also edited the slides while he watched, so I'm multitasking. Mind you, the service has already begun, so I can't actually display the slides just to make sure. I increased the font so big that the slides look ridiculous. Before, there were only 10 slides, and one slide could contain 6-7 lines of 2-3 Bible verses with a translation section below it. Now, there are about 40 slides with 15 plus lines that contains only 6 words in each. I can barely fit the translation part, and each slides could contain only 1 verse. It looked totally atrocious. After witnessing his destruction, he patted me on my back, gave me a thumb up, and went to find an empty seat. I looked at the pastor's wife, and even she shook her head. During the sermon, it was extremely awkward. The speaker was having a difficult time reading from the screen because he kept on pausing after each line. I also have to switch the slides quicker than before because each only consisted of 1 verse, which interrupted the speaker's pace. After 10 minutes, the speaker gave up and just read from his own Bible, which most audiences follow suit. I witnessed many audiences pulled up their Bible app from their phone and just read from there, even Nate. I texted Nate, "Why are you reading from your phone? I thought you wanted the font bigger so you can read from the screen." And in response, he turned and glared at me silently. After the service was finished, the speaker approached me and asked if everything is okay because the slides didn't look like what I usually made. The pastor's wife approached us, was very apologetic, and explained everything. Then we looked for Nate, in which we couldn't find him in the crowd. I guess he was too embarrassed to admit his monstrosity. The next one is an entitled People story. A few years ago, I used to work at a large retail company on the overnight shift at the time. As many who have worked in retail probably know, inventory time is a big deal as it can determine whether we get a bonus or not, on top of having to do extra training if the shrinkage amount is really high. We had these devices that were used to do things like add or subtract items from inventory, print labels, keep track of what bins inventory was in, and so forth. Well, this one particular store, the department managers had talked the store manager into allowing them to store these devices in their lockers at the end of their shifts, which means no one else on any shift could use them, except in one department that needed the device to assist customers. About 4 weeks prior to inventory, I asked the co-manager to have these devices left for us so that we can start getting the back rooms ready for inventory, which means getting labels on all the boxes and then the amount that is in each box, and if there is a row of the same item, to put the correct amount for all the items of that particular item on the label. Day shift wouldn't do this because they were always too busy. For the next 2 weeks, we were never left any of these devices to get the back rooms completed. This will have been my 8th or 9th inventory, so I know that come inventory time, if the back rooms aren't done, it is always blamed on the overnight manager. So I spent my 2 days off, and bear in mind I'm salary, so I don't get paid for this time, at work getting the back stock room completed. This was about 20 extra hours of unpaid time. I'd come in early enough both shifts to be sure to get one of these devices before they were locked away in their lockers. My co-manager had seen me doing this when he came in the first morning, and he asked me why I was there, being it was my night off. I told him that since my numerous requests to have the devices available for us hadn't been done, I was there to get the bins in order. I figured when I came back for my next shift after my 2 unpaid nights that we would have some of these devices available for us to keep up on any leftover stock that needed to be put away in the bins. I was wrong. When I came in and seen that there were none left for us, to say I was pissed is putting it lightly. All that time spent, unpaid, and these department managers still think these devices should be kept to themselves. So I went to the HR office and got the locker binder, and this binder is the combination to all the padlocks on each locker. I also grabbed a flashlight and began going through every locker that was assigned to a department manager, and if I saw one of the devices in the locker, I opened it and took out the device. Luckily, the area had cameras, so it was easy to see what I took out of a locker. I found every device we had, put them in a shopping cart, and handed them out to the associates. Each one had a huge smile on their face and told me thanks. Around 6 a.m., I had the associates bring the devices back and put them in another shopping cart because the last hour of the shift is spent cleaning up and zoning the aisle, meaning making all the product on the shelves look straight. Then I waited for the department managers to come in. They started trickling in around 6:45 a.m., and when they had seen the devices sitting in a shopping cart, well, you would have thought that someone had just taken their firstborns from them. Generally, what happens with me is the co-manager comes to the assistant's office, I get up and go walk the floor with him to see if there was anything I had missed or whatever. This morning, however, when he came to the office, I went to get up and he basically said, "Hold on, the store manager wants to talk to me first." I asked, "Am I in trouble?" He said, "Don't know, but I'll let you know." So I waited a bit until he came and got me, and we started on our walk. I asked him if I was in trouble and pled my case about having asked for the devices for the last 2 weeks and got nothing. He said no, but if I decide to do this type of thing again, to at least warn him first. I had heard from some of the other assistant managers before I left that some of the department managers were really pissed and said I should be coached because how dare I go through their lockers. What they apparently didn't know was that company policy actually stated that company equipment is not to be left in lockers after their work shift, and if it is, we have the authority to go through their lockers and find it. I left and expected to once again not have the devices available for us because I was sure the department managers would get their way. When I came in that night, every device was sitting in an office for us to use, and it stayed that way every night up though inventory. The funny thing is, there was a song that was playing when the department managers had started coming in, and it was such a fitting song that now whenever I hear it, I think of this event. The song was Not Ready to Make Nice by the Dixie Chicks, as they were known back then. I don't think I did anything wrong, but I'm pretty sure the department managers thought so. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.